In this video, I'm going to break down 5 business lessons from the richest businessman to ever live in American history, John D Rockefeller. And this is top 5 book that I've ever read, and I've read hundreds. These are 38 private letters that he wrote to his son on success, on mindset, on building wealth. And I'm going to break down 5 of my favorite that I've personally applied and you guys can apply to become more successful and to become wealthier. So the very first point is talking about people's tendency to overplan, to never really take the jump because the time's not right. They don't have enough information. They need to wait. And his quote is, "We cannot fall into the trap of continuous deliberation and planning, but we must recognize the reality. No matter how detailed the plan, we can never accurately predict the outcome. And nothing in this world can be obtained from just thinking." You can think all you want, you can manifest all you want, you can plan all you want, you can have the perfect plan, but if you don't take action on that plan, it will never materialize. And just thinking is never going to actually do anything. Obviously, we need to plan. Obviously, we need to know where we're trying to go. We need to take time and do that. But most people do way too much of that and not enough action. Action is what's actually going to get you to your goal. And obviously, again, most of us know that, but when you really reflect on it in your own life, where are you doing that? Where are you not taking enough action? Where are you planning too much? Once you start moving, and this is a tendency that I've even caught myself sometimes from time to time and try to pull myself out of. We think we need to know everything before we start moving, but action helps guide perception. So what I mean by that is once we start moving, we're gonna start realizing certain things. We're gonna learn, we're gonna get more information. Then we can adjust, we can go down this path a little more, go down this path and self-correct. But you're never going to know anything until you start moving. Once you start moving, you can get more information, you can adjust, you can improve your plan, and you're not gonna know everything at first. But once you start going, that's when you start going, that's when you start getting momentum, you start getting confidence, you start getting more knowledge, and then you can start to go. You don't need to know everything from the beginning all the way to the end. You'll figure it out as you go. So start getting moving, start taking action. The second thing, which is one of my favorite concepts of the book, is among the wealthy people that I know or acquainted with, there are very few people who rely on accumulating small bits of wealth each day to become who they are. More people make money by borrowing money. So there's obviously 2 different parts to that. Number 1 is the wealthy people where they're trying to accumulate a lot all at once. So that may take 3 to 5 years, but they're not worried about taking a job now, making 100K, getting just enough to get by and trying to build wealth that way. They're saying, hey, I'm fine with making the bare minimum now, but I'm going to build a company that in 3 to 5 years is going to be worth $1 billion. And then all of a sudden my net worth is now 100 million. Obviously way easier said than done, but that is their mindset on how to actually become wealthy. They're not worried about just, let me get a paycheck today, let me invest it, let me wait, let me just do this for 40, 50 years. Obviously you can build wealth that way, but the sense that he is talking about, the really wealthy people, the people that he was talking with and acquainting with, they're people that are trying to accumulate large bits of wealth and they're not even really concerned about those small bits or those day-to-day expenses. Now, obviously that takes a certain type of person, you need to be a certain situation, but that is their mindset. Another instance could be, you're trying to run a huge event. Say you're running a business and as opposed to, hey, how can I make, $10,000 this month? They're thinking, how can I go and make $1 million? How can I do something so big that brings me so much money all at once? They're not just thinking, how can I get, another $50 a month subscriber to my business? They're thinking, how can I go make 50K in one day, running an event, doing something big? That is the way that they think. Take it for however you will. Now, the second part of that is more people make money by borrowing money, which is very true. All of the wealthy people, whether it's in real estate or in business, they're using other people's money. So whether you're taking that loan directly yourself or you are taking other people's loan into your business, that is how most people get wealthy, is by utilizing other people's money. So if you only have $1,000, $2,000, $10,000, it's going to be very tough to make $10,000 or $100,000 on that money. Now, if you can get a loan for $100,000, which is what people do with property, which is what people do when they start businesses. Hey, I'm going to start a business. Can I get $100,000 from you? Okay, boom, get another $100,000. Now all of a sudden you got a $15,000 valuated business, and then you can turn that into 100 or you can turn it into 200. That is how wealthy people think. They don't think about just using their own money. They use other people's money as well. They use loans and things like that. That is how the wealthy people play the game. They do not just use all cash. They do not just use all of their own money. Take that information for what you will. That is just how the world works. That is how these people operate. That is the way that they think. So don't just always think about using your own money. How can you use other people's money to get wealthy? That is the game. That is how they play it. So the next one comes down to how wealthy people look at every single dollar versus just your everyday person. So the quote is, "The wealthy understand every penny can be used to bring benefits and more wealth." So this is essentially the consumption versus the investment crowd, where even in a lot of his letter, he talks about every single dollar, meticulously tracking it, meticulously trying to utilize and deploy every single dollar for maximum value. So the wealthy people look at, okay, this dollar, how can this dollar be deployed to make me more money? Versus the average person is just going to think, oh, you know, I got an extra $10, $20, $1,000, I'm going to spend this money. Where wealthy people think every single dollar, how can I deploy this to make me more money down the road? And obviously there's going to get to a point where you deploy so much money that you can't even really spend it. And that's at the point that a lot of these wealthy people are at. But they get there by deploying every dollar and thinking in terms of investment. How can this dollar be put somewhere else that's going to generate me more money, make me more wealthy? That is how they think, versus everyone else is more in the consumption. How can I spend this money, right? I have a TikTok that I made once where you can kind of tell how people think about money by asking them one question. If you got an extra paycheck, if you got an extra $2,000 randomly dropped into your bank account, what would you do with it? If their initial thought is, oh, I would buy this, or I'd go there, I'd do this trick, they're probably more in the consumption mindset as opposed to, oh, I'm going to invest it here, I'm going to do this with it, and I'm going to invest it. You can immediately tell where people sit on that consumption versus investment line by simply asking them that one simple question. And that's how the wealthy people think. And as you guys can see, if you guys are out and about and you talk to normal people, that is how normal people think as well. So this last one comes down to just people's mindsets and the way that they direct their lives or don't direct their lives. So the quote is, if you are unable to actively establish your own goals, you will passively or unconsciously choose others' goals. Set clear goals for everything you do. Now, if you look at most people, you will realize they are living passively. Most people have no real goal for where they're trying to go. If I ask you right now, what are your top 3 goals for this year? Or what are your top 3 skills or things that you're trying to learn in this moment? If you can't easily answer that question, you are probably living more passively than you should be. You should know your exact goals for almost everything that you do. You need to have a direction on your life, or life will be directed for you. You will either be living by your boss's goals or your parents' goals of their vision of your life, or your friends' goals or where they're going. You're just going to be passively following them. And it's just how the world works. If you don't have a direction, the world is going to pick a direction for you, and it's probably not going to be the direction that you want yourself. It's going to be a mix of somebody else's goals, the world's goals, the news's goals, social media's goals. You're going to go down that path without directing your own life. And that is exactly how most people live. They live very passively. Their lives are kind of just directed, and then all of a sudden you end up 50 years old. You don't even really know how you got there because you didn't guide your life. 99% of the successful people have these goals. They know exactly what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, in what order, and how they're going to get there. So have a direction. Have 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals after this video written down. Know what your mission is, know what your path is, and know where you're trying to go. You have a much better chance of getting there by just simply writing it down. And most people never do that. There's a stat, I believe it's like 50%. You have a 50% better chance of becoming successful by just simply writing down your goals. Simply the act of doing that is what most people cannot do. And if you can do that, you can have these goals and you can establish a clear vision of where you're trying to go. You are already ahead of 99% of people. So I would do that after this video if you have not already, or you don't already have that in the top of your head every single day like I do, and like a lot of other people that I associate with do. So if you enjoyed the video, if you guys want to see other stuff like this, just drop a comment, like, subscribe, all that kind of other stuff. See you guys in the next video soon. Peace.